Japan has entered a period of significant policy reconsideration after years of debate about its national direction. While many analysts had expected continued compromise, recent statements from Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi signaled a firmer stance on national identity and domestic priorities. The announcement quickly drew international attention, prompting discussion across diplomatic and economic circles. At its core, the message emphasized that cultural identity and national decision-making would remain central considerations, even amid ongoing global market pressures. For observers who assumed existing policies would remain unchanged, the shift marked a clear signal. Access and openness are now being weighed more carefully against long-term social and national interests. Rather than a sudden closure, the move reflected a broader recalibration, one that suggests Japan is redefining how it engages with the world while maintaining control over its internal direction. For much of its modern history, Japan has been known for placing a high value on cultural continuity and social cohesion. In recent years, however, demographic pressures and workforce shortages have intensified public discussion about immigration and long-term integration. Those debates have included concerns from businesses seeking labor, as well as citizens focused on preserving shared norms and social trust. Against that backdrop, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has outlined stricter standards for long-term residency and citizenship. Under the proposed framework, the timeline for naturalization would be extended, requiring a longer period of demonstrated residence and participation. In addition, permanent residency would involve clearer language proficiency requirements, aimed at ensuring that newcomers are able to communicate effectively and engage fully in daily life. Supporters of the approach describe it as more than an administrative adjustment. They see it as a statement about expectations, emphasizing commitment, integration, and mutual responsibility between the individual and the broader society. From this perspective, shared language and cultural understanding are viewed as essential components of long-term cohesion. Critics argue that stricter requirements may limit flexibility in addressing labor needs, while proponents counter that sustained social stability depends on more than economic considerations alone. The debate reflects a broader question facing many countries: how to balance demographic challenges with the desire to maintain a strong sense of collective identity in an increasingly interconnected world. Recent public appearances and diplomatic engagements have drawn attention to a shift in how some governments are presenting their priorities on the global stage. Rather than relying solely on formal policy documents, leaders are increasingly using symbolism and public messaging to communicate alignment on issues such as national sovereignty, borders, and domestic responsibility. One such moment came when Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi appeared alongside the U.S. President, a scene that generated discussion across international media. The appearance was widely interpreted as a signal of closer coordination between Washington and Tokyo, particularly on questions of national interest and regional strategy. During remarks, the U.S. President praised Takaichi's leadership, describing her as forward-looking and committed to prioritizing her country's citizens. Supporters viewed the language as reflective of a broader emphasis on defined borders, clear standards, and domestic accountability. Critics, meanwhile, characterized the rhetoric as a departure from long-standing international norms, underscoring the divide in how such messaging is received. Together, these developments pointed to a recalibration in U.S.-Japan relations, with both governments signaling closer alignment on security, governance, and regional stability in the Pacific. Rather than a dramatic break, the moment illustrated how shifting global conditions are prompting nations to reassess cooperation, sovereignty, and the balance between openness and control. Public reaction to these developments has been swift and highly visible, particularly across online platforms, where discussions around integration and social cohesion are increasingly prominent. Many commentators have emphasized that participation alone is not enough, arguing that long-term stability depends on shared communication, civic engagement, and mutual understanding within communities. Language proficiency, in particular, is often cited as a key factor in building connection and social trust. In parts of the Western world, observers have been closely watching Japan's approach as a case study. Some view it as an example of a country placing clearer expectations around integration at a time when other nations are still grappling with border management and social coordination. International organizations and advocacy groups have raised concerns, describing such policies as restrictive, while supporters argue they are aimed at preserving cohesion rather than exclusion. Prime Minister Takaichi has remained consistent in her messaging, framing cultural continuity and integration standards as central responsibilities of governance. Supporters describe the approach as a way to reduce social fragmentation by ensuring that new citizens are equipped to participate fully in society. The broader debate reflects a challenge many countries are facing: how to balance openness with unity in an interconnected world. Japan's choices have become part of that wider conversation, highlighting how different governments are responding to questions of identity, inclusion, and long-term social stability. Looking ahead, the implications of these developments extend well beyond Tokyo. They reflect a broader reassessment underway in many countries about sustainability, demographics, and long-term national resilience. In Japan's case, recent signals suggest a willingness to prioritize structural stability and social cohesion over short-term solutions to workforce challenges. Such decisions carry political risk, but they also resonate with audiences abroad who are closely watching how different governments address similar pressures. Observers in the United States have noted the alignment in messaging between Japanese and American leadership, viewing it as part of a wider conversation about the role of the nation-state in a changing global environment. At its core, the discussion goes beyond individual policy areas. It touches on questions of identity, belonging, and the responsibilities that come with citizenship. How these standards are implemented and how they are received internationally will remain a subject of close attention. As global dynamics continue to evolve, these choices may influence how countries in the East and West engage with one another in the years ahead. While outcomes remain uncertain, the current moment underscores how deeply questions of governance, cooperation, and national priorities are shaping the next phase of international dialogue.